Hello everyone and welcome to the show of Paranormal Awakening. Today we are interviewing our friend Sean about Bigfoot and many more experiences. Hello everyone, we are here with Sean. Everyone, welcome into the stream.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. I'm just making sure all my audio stuff is there. Seems like we might have a little bit of a stream delay, but for those of you guys that are watching the stream,
Okay,
I
I'm
will
here. Okay.
try and answer your questions to the best of our ability. I just want to say a quick shout out to Alex Owen Under the Veil, my moderator. Thank you so much, brother, for being here. Thank you so much to our viewers for being here. And thank you so much, Sean, for being here as well.
Thank you.
So, Sean, if you wouldn't mind giving us a little bit of an introduction yourself.
Yeah. So Sean's my name. I met this gentleman on a Bigfoot page that we both follow on Facebook. I do squatch hunting as a little side hobby of mine. On top of doing caregiving for a living. Me and my fiance started squatching a little earlier this year. I've always been a believer in Bigfoot, but within the last year, I've been really divulging into it. And there's been things that I've read and experienced doing this that have been really interesting. So, yeah, it's a little bit about me. I love video games. I'm a kind of a nerd. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I love video games. You know, we talked a little bit before the podcast. We have a lot in common, which is pretty fun and pretty cool. And
Yeah.
same to many of you guys that have hopped on the podcast as well. So, when you had your first experience with Bigfoot, can you describe to me kind of like where, like, not the exact location, but like kind of like the area and like what happened?
So the first time, now keep in mind, I've never seen one like with my own eyes, but I've been in the woods my entire life when I was a kid. Like I mentioned, a little known fact, my family is from the South on my dad's side. So like growing up in the woods is like a family tradition. So I used to go to my uncle's house. There's a place in Oregon called Malala. And I'd go out there and it was the middle of the woods and we'd shoot off rifles and hang out in the woods and stuff. So I've kind of been in the woods for a while, and even as a little kid, there were a few times where my family would talk about Sasquatch and stuff like that, and they were like, "Yeah, I've been in the woods and I've seen and heard things." So I've always had an open mind. But the first time that I experienced something was a few months ago when me and my fiance were doing a Squatch hunt. We go up to this spot up in near Mount Hood in Oregon, and this little town called Welch's. It's off the beaten path in Welch's, and we go up there, and there's this little shout out to Koya Kitchen. They're a little restaurant up there. It's like a Korean type restaurant. So we got some food. We went up there. We pulled up. We sat there. Instead of getting out, we're like, "Hey, let's just eat our food before we do our thing." So I was like, "Okay, that's fine with me." And this was maybe our fourth or fifth time up there. And we're sitting there and we eating our food, and then my fiance just freezes, and I'm like, "What's going on?" And I'm in the passenger seat. She's in the driver's seat. And keep in mind, we're sitting here. Right in front of us is just woods, and then there's a little river, and then more woods, and then behind us is woods, but then it goes up into a hill. And she looks off to her left, and she sees this tree going like this. And I'm like, and keep in mind, there's no wind. It's quiet as hell up there. And we're like, and I was like, what is that? And she's like, what is that? And I leaned over. I'm like, I have no idea. So I just shrugged it off as it's maybe just the wind or whatever. And then within literally 30 seconds, because we rolled our windows down because we want to listen, we started hearing movement in the woods, and we heard tree like things being stepped on and weird things like that. And we started getting like the creeps because it was like, I don't know if you've ever had that feeling where you feel like there's something moving. It's not necessarily making sound, but it's like the air is being disturbed,
Oh
if that
yeah,
makes sense.
definitely. Yeah, I've experienced that a lot.
Yeah, so that was really weird. And then, so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do a tree knock. So I got my bat, which was in her trunk. I walked up to the tree and I do three hits. And then I started hearing moving and I got really nervous. So I start walking back and I turn around. And as soon as I do that, right behind me is another. And keep in mind, when I had my back turned, it was where the car is facing front. So when I had my back turned where the car is facing front, on the other side, up on the hill, there was a movement up there with some wood snappings, and
So
we heard that for like 5 minutes, and then we both were just getting nervous. And then by the time we were about to leave, whatever it was, almost sensed that we were going to leave, and then it just stopped.
so one of my
Um,
viewers asked, how tall was the tree? So
how tall was the tree?
yeah.
So you know how they got in Oregon they have the standard pine wood. So it wasn't a full grown pine wood, but it was like, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'4". I'm pretty strong. I couldn't shake that tree.
Huh.
So it wasn't like a full grown one, but it was thick enough where you would have to be like two or three guys would have to be shaking it for it to be moving the way it did. It wasn't like a little small little tree that anybody can shake.
So do you think
Um,
that by chance, like, so you haven't experienced Bigfoot before this, then?
there's been a couple like that was the one that kind of made me like, oh shit! Like I've heard a couple. By the way, I can
Yeah,
swear, right?
go, go
Okay,
for it. I don't
okay,
care.
cool.
I do all the
Okay,
time, on and off camera
okay,
sometimes.
okay. So that was the first one that made me like get really creeped out. There were other little circumstances that were kind of like, okay, that was strange. Like there was another one where we went up there, same spot, but it was up a little bit further up, and we were sitting on the log, and my fiance had just gotten a new smartphone, and we're just sitting there playing around with it. And it was kind of where the day was starting to get a little darker. It was still enough light out, but it was getting darker. And she was trying to figure out how to activate the fingerprint reader on her phone. And I looked down to try to help her, and hand before God, up towards like my right up, which there's no path, there's nothing where people would be going. Um, three distinct clank, clank, clank. I still remember the sound distinctively to this day.
Hmm.
Yeah, and like I said, it was getting dark, and up there's no like path that people could walk up to. It was really eerie.
Did you have some sort of like energy? So you're describing to me that you kind of felt scared in a way. Was this like a form of like maybe them trying to say like, hey, you know, we want to tell you that we're here, but like you're the chosen one.
No, I never got anything like that. Most of the times that I got the feeling from that. Now, the thing that I got, it's always been the feeling of like, hey, get out of here. We want to be left alone. But the thing that I got to be careful of is like the power of suggestion, because it's one of those things where when you're going out looking for something, you start looking for signs to back up what you're looking for. But this was one of those things where there's so much going on. And I even have an audio recording. I can send it to you later if you want to post it later. I literally have an audio recording of me sitting there, and then you can literally hear a wood snapping. Now, of course, it could be anything, but it was really strange that was after I did the wood knock, and there's nothing down there. There was nobody else. So yeah, it was really, really weird. And I did have a very like a sense of like impending doom. Like I need to get out of there.
So with that being said, uh, when you were experiencing these, have you ever came across any structures? Because I watch a lot of Bigfoot documentaries. I've come across
Mm-hmm.
a lot of structures as well myself. I have plenty of them, plenty pictures of them on my website as well. But have you ever seen any structures? And also, have you ever seen? So there's this guy that I learned a lot from. His name is Colorado Bigfoot on YouTube. Big shout out, by the
Hmm.
way. So his channel is pretty cool. You know, he does a lot of Bigfoot research and a little bit UFO here and there, but
Hmm.
mainly Bigfoot. And so, have you ever seen his channel or anyone else's channel that got you interested into Bigfoot, or was it just like,
Um, well, that's the problem. Like, I've probably seen that gentleman's videos and just don't realize it because I wasn't like paying attention to the name or whatever. Because I'll throughout the years, I'll once in a while get a little kicker of like, I want to go down the cryptozoology field, like whether it's Bigfoot, Dogman, whoever. But like I said earlier, I've always believed in Bigfoot. Like, I'm part Native American, and like you go to because I used to go to when I was a little kid, I used to go to I was in Cub Scouts, and I went to a lot of like Native American reservations and stuff. And they don't even think about Bigfoot. It's not even like, oh, he might exist. You talk to them, and they're like, oh yeah, he's here. It's not even a question. So I've always believed in Bigfoot. And so I've probably seen his videos, just don't realize it. But the thing that got me kind of really interested in it was just the fact of like of all the cryptids, whether it's Sasquatch or Loch Ness monster, whoever, it seems to be the one that is the most prevalent in the sense that people still talk about. Like Loch Ness kind of seemed like it died down. Dogman seemed to kind of like die down, but people are still to this day reporting Sasquatch sightings. Very credible people, and I actually have a story I wanted to tell you about a neighbor of mine that I have great trust in who saw one, and she swore that she saw one.
oh, dude, I totally believe it. Like, you know, I think to me, I respect the non-believers, but you also have to experience it for yourself if you're a non-believer. And if you're viewing my show and you're a non-believer, uh, you know, spend some time by yourself in this world that we live in, because
Mm-hmm.
I had a crazy night 2 nights ago, but I'll talk about that on a later podcast. But I told you the story of what happened a few. Did I tell you? Yeah,
You kind of touched on it a little, yeah.
yeah. But like, guys, there's so much to this world that we live in, and it's definitely crazy. So if you want to continue with your story,
Sure. About the neighbor.
yeah.
Okay, so to kind of preface that, the fact that I trust this person, so I live in a trailer park, or I have been living in a trailer park. I'm in the process of moving right now. So the owner tore down the laundromat a few years ago. Well, this lady that that I know, um, she lives down the road here, and I used to go up and down every day to go up to the corner store to get things. Right, so she's gotten to know me from just my travels. So I've known her for almost 10 years, and I was actually talking to her the other day after doing some laundry, and I was like, yeah, have you been seeing my Sasquatch, because I posted them on my Facebook page. And she's like, yeah, I actually saw a Sasquatch. And I'm like, what? She's never told me this. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, I was up in the Willamette forest, Mount Willamette National Forest, which is a known Sasquatch hotspot. And she said that she was up there probably, I think she said late 80s, 90s, or maybe the early 2000s. I can't remember the decade, but it was a little while ago. And she was up there doing some mushroom picking with her friends. So she had a witness, and they were kind of looking down the road, and they were on a logging road, and it was in the middle of nowhere. And they're looking around like, what the hell? Where's the mushrooms? And she looks up, and she says that coming out of the woods was a big, tall, 7 foot plus big hairy creature. And he looked at her, stopped, and then quickly, within like maybe 10 seconds, turned around and walked into the woods. And I was trying to poke holes in her story because I said I don't disbelieve you, but I need to figure this out. I said, could it have been the bear? And she's like, no, because when bears walk on their feet, they kind of do this weird, like it looks weird, they're kind of like shuffling almost. And I was like, okay. And I said, could it have been a person? And she's like, no, because it was in the middle of woods, and it was kind of getting kind of dark, and it was
And
like way out there,
and was it kind of
and it
too
was like
tall to?
seven.
Probably too tall to
What was
be.
that?
Was it too tall to be one?
A person?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she even joked with this. She said, unless it was a 7 foot plus tall person wearing a monkey suit in the middle of the Willamette forest, hoping that somebody happens to drive by. It was either that or a Sasquatch. I'm like, well, it's unlikely it was the first thing. Because how many 7 foot people are walking around?
Chewbacca,
So,
you know? No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Hey, hey, to our Star
right.
Wars fans, hey, Star Wars is awesome, always.
Oh, I love Star Wars. But I asked her, I said, well, what do you swear on? She's like, well, let me put it this way. If I was standing in front of a judge and had to swear an oath in front of a judge under penalty of perjury, I would still say the same thing. I'm like, wow. And this person has no reason to lie. She didn't even want to tell me. The only reason she told me is because she saw that I Sasquatched. Other than that, she was like, I don't tell this story because people think I'm, lying. And she said I even had a witness next to me who saw the same thing.
Dude,
So,
you know, I mean, I think to all people who experience these things, like, we still need to get our stories out because, like, it can open eyes to many people. And, like, I get it. There's some people that are skeptics, like our parents or our family members and other stuff. But, the
well,
skeptics should
go
probably
ahead, sorry.
keep their mind open. But, once again, spend some time with yourself and you'll, like, you are an experiencer yourself as well. So,
Right. And here's the thing that I like the other thing that kind of keeps you grounded in the fact that there might be some kind of being like that is from the fact that all the Native American, literally almost, maybe not all, but a lot of them, they have a Sasquatch creature in their lore, and they have different names like Skokum and Sasquatch and all that. Um, and that's one. The other one is all the eyewitness people. Sure, let's even say half are just making it up. That's still thousands of people who have seen something that is not. And then the third one is it's not beyond precedent that there could be a undiscovered primate living in North America. I mean, I can't remember the name of the fish, but there was a fish that we thought was extinct for millions of years. Well, with it about a few decades ago, they found a school of them off the coast of Madagascar, and we thought this thing was dead for millions of years. So I think that Sasquatch could be just what is known as a Gigantopithecus, which was they have bones founded in Asia, I believe, and the theory is, and I believe this too, is that maybe because they think at one point there was a land bridge, sort of, kind of connecting North America to Asia, and that's how those being creatures crossed that bridge to get to North America. Who knows? But I just think it's weird that throughout North America, there's this Sasquatch creature. That just can't be made up to me, at least. We got about a quarter of the way and we both started getting nervous. I mean, keep in mind, it is the woods at 10 o'clock at night. So that, forgetting Sasquatch, that's creepy in of itself. So we turn around and we're getting ready to leave. And all of a sudden, as I turn around to ask her if she's okay, she starts walking really fast. I'm like, what's wrong? She's like, a rock literally just landed right behind me. And she looked legit terrified. And like I said, I've known my fiance pretty well. And I mean, if she was faking, she deserves an Academy Award because that was terrific acting if that was faking. And not only that, the place that, I'll just tell the place that we went to. It's called Huckleberry Trail. It's up in Welch's. I can't remember the second part of the name, but just look up Welch's Huckleberry Trail and it'll pop up. That place was even on ABC News because Matt Moneymaker from Finding Bigfoot posted that with ABC News, and we even looked it up on BFRO. That place was a hot Sasquatch sighting hot spot because they have huckleberries growing there, and the theory is that the squatches will come down and feed on them come the late spring, early summer. So that's one of the main reasons we went up there. But yeah, that's one of the stories that I have. And then the other day, I think I found a footprint. It's hard to tell because the image is kind of blurry, but I think I found a footprint up near another place a little bit east of that Huckleberry Trail that we were discussing.
so for these forest areas being the main hot spots and you know, national forests and all that, and Yosemite, the well-known names. Do you think that there's some sort of reason why these beings and Bigfoot might be potentially there?
I think I know what you're referencing. Are you kind of throwing reference out to the 411 thing, maybe?
I don't think I've heard of
'Cause
that.
oh, the missing 411. Ooh, okay.
Yeah,
I'll discuss.
I don't think I've heard of that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That one's a little controversial one. I'll give you the clip notes here in just a second, and then I'll tell you why I think they are, and then I'll give you the clip notes of 411. I think you should check it out. So as far as the hotspots, I don't know. I mean, the only thing that I can think of is maybe because those places are rich in food sources, so they have to come down to those spots to get those food sources. But that's a problem when you're trying to find out about an animal that still technically doesn't exist. Is it's kind of hard to predict its movements. So I'm not sure, but if I was to bet money, it's the food source that the places we see them just so happen to be ripe with deer and fruit and things of that effect. But who knows? And then as far as the 411 thing, the documentaries are free on YouTube. I would check them out. It's by this guy named Dave Polides. I think I want to say his last name correctly. Well, he discusses how people throughout these national parks, whether it's Yosemite, Yellowstone, Crater Lake, yada yada yada. Some people will go missing under really strange circumstances, and he did a research about how the forest industry doesn't do tracking on how many people have gone missing. Apparently, it's hundreds, and there's been cases where they just make zero sense. Like, for example, there was a guy who did a hiking trip up in these hills over in Montana, I think. He was an experienced woodsman, been hunting his entire life. They go up towards the mountain, and they were going to meet at this camp. And they're like, okay, well, we need you to go up to this other place. I can't remember the circumstances, but they needed to go up a little bit up the trail for something. I don't remember the specifics. Well, anyway, he goes up to the trail, and when he was supposed to take a left to go to the spot, he, for some reason, just decided to keep going, right? And they don't hear from him for a whole day. And so they call search and rescue, and they're flying the helicopter, and they find that he left his boots on top of like a big hill. And maybe he just had hypothermia, because if you have hypothermia, you start hallucinating and stuff. But then the weird thing was he kept going. He kept going for another 3-4 miles. And then he stopped at another spot, and the spot that he deposited the rest of his clothing, down the hill, probably a quarter mile, was a house that he could see the lights from that distance. And instead of going straight and going to the house, he turns left and goes another way and walks another 2 miles and dies.
So,
Um,
do you think that maybe the reason why there are these missings or this kind of stuff happens could be because of potential aliens or UFOs?
I don't know. The guy, Paul Pilates or Dave Pilates, I can't remember. Just like I said,
Yeah,
411 on YouTube. Terrific
It's
documentary.
David P something, I think, cuz
P something.
yeah.
Yeah, Pilates. Paulides, I think. But his documentaries are free on YouTube. They're great. But he doesn't specifically say that it could be aliens or Sasquatch or whatever. He leaves it up to you. But I don't know, because I believe in UFOs and aliens too. I will say this: the world is a lot stranger than what we think it is, and I
Definitely.
think that's one of the main reasons I think people don't believe in aliens and Sasquatch and stuff, is because people are so comfortable with a framework of what life should be, and if things don't fall within that framework, it makes people very uncomfortable, and that's why people are quick to dismiss. Oh, there's no Bigfoot, there's no aliens, there's none of that.
So
Um,
kind of like we're
yeah,
living in a system because there's people that, go to their day jobs and then they go work out, they go do whatever, they go do their daily things.
right.
And it's a system that we live in this world, and there's a book called Behold a Pale Horse that actually talks about it. Yeah,
Yeah, I've seen that.
yeah, and that book talks about many things of the paranormal world. And by the way, big shout out to Alex Owen Under the Veil for telling me about that book. But yeah, so that book basically dives into, so much of the paranormal and abductions and this and that. But
Well, there is some precedent with the Bigfoot thing, because the reason that I don't think people should be so, because the 411 missing people, the Bigfoot thing. I know it may sound like, oh gosh, that sounds absolutely outlandish, But keep in mind, I don't remember the name of the tribe, but the Native Americans who used to live near Mount St. Helens, which is pretty close to me. They used to talk about how there used to be, because that tribe, I can't remember the name, forgive me, but that tribe believes that the Sasquatch aren't necessarily apes or anything. They're basically a group of people that split off from people because our people did things that they didn't agree with when it came to how we treated the earth. So that they believe that they, before Mount St. Helens blew up, that they were residing in Mount St. Helens and they were cannibalistic, and that they would warn the children, don't go up to the mountain because the men will eat you, that kind of shit. And it is kind of funny because one of the first Sasquatch sightings where it first started gaining traction was in the 1920s, where they discussed how these miners, like coal mining, were up there, and they were sleeping, getting ready for their work the next day, and they were heard like rocks hitting their roof, and they're like, "What the hell is that?" And they get up and they describe these ape-like creatures throwing shit at their house, and they're like, "Oh, let's get the hell out of here." Um, and not only that, they even have a caves up there. I've never been there, but I wanted to. They have a cave up there called Ape Caves, which is kind of a weird thing to call it since technically we don't have any apes in North America. So that's interesting.
Yeah. So, going back to these people that were missing,
Mm-hmm.
do you think that potentially, uh, the people that say that it was Sasquatch taking them, do you think by chance they might have accidentally mistaked Sasquatch for maybe the aliens taking them? Because, there is a lot of alien abductions, but I don't know
I mean,
I don't know if it'd be
I
Sasquatch abducting people, because there is a connection between Sasquatch and the UFOs. There's a huge documentary on that on YouTube. Uh,
yeah, I saw that. There has been a lot of orbs reported around Sasquatch hotspots. I don't know. I will say this: I'm a very open minded person when it comes to things. Like the saying goes, "Fact is stranger than fiction." So I don't know. It. I will say that the fact that there's so many reports of this being and so much evidence, but we still haven't seen anything decisive. And then the fact the government just came out in June and it almost was not even talked about. They literally confirmed the UFOs exist and nobody even really talked about it, which is weird to me. Is interesting. So I think it's not a beyond the realm of possibility for sure.
so, uh, for anyone in the show that's watching right now, if you do have any questions, feel free to comment below as well.
Absolutely.
But is there any out? Man, I'm messing up my words today.
No,
But
you're all right.
yeah, anything else that you wanted to touch up on? Because I know before we talked, you had experience with ghosts, and I know, guys, this is going off topic, but it's still the same paranormal, this and
Yeah, it
that,
still fits within the
still
theme of
paranormal. But
paranormal.
ha-
Yeah, I have absolutely experienced paranormal as far as ghosts. When I was 10 years old, we used to live as about 8 or 9 miles from here. I lived in this blue house, and I could never shake the feeling I was being watched. And at first, you could just shrug it off. Oh, it's just kids being scared of the dark, whatever. But even my mom's boyfriend at the time and the roommate that we were staying of everybody except my mom said that they had either heard, seen, or felt something in that house. And it was always the basement. And I know that sounds very cliche, but the reason for that is because this house was unique. When you went to the basement, there was almost like a secondary, like downstairs part of the house that we weren't allowed to go in because it was owned by a guy. So think of it like you have the top floor where it's got the kitchen, bathroom, da da da, and you got downstairs where we had access to
so
the
kind of like the
laundry and
Conjuring
everything.
house, pretty much like that, right?
I
Yeah,
guess.
that's how
And
I'm
then
picturing it.
right, and then literally when you went down the basement, you had your stuff, but then right here was this big like glass window and then a sliding door that was like almost like a big room, but we couldn't get into it. Always got creepy vibes from there, and so did like everybody else but my mom. That basement creeped me out so much that my mom's ex used to work at Dryer's ice cream, so we had a huge freezer of ice cream. So imagine as a 10-year-old boy, I can literally go downstairs and get all the ice cream I could ever eat. I would still not go downstairs to go get ice cream. I was that scared of the basement.
So
Um,
did were they did they ever have concerning experiences like you did? So you weren't just the
yes,
only one.
no. The big one was me and my brother. Me and my brother and my mom were downstairs helping her do laundry, and we go upstairs to okay, we started laundry. Let's go upstairs and hang out. And as we hang out, my brother slips, and my mom just instinctively grabs him as they're walking the stairs, grabs him, and she said that she felt like something was pulling him down, and he went down, and then he luckily didn't hit his head. In fact, she said that when he fell back, when it looked like he was about to hit his head on the concrete, it almost looked like something like prevented it from hitting the concrete. Who knows? But that was really creepy because my mom didn't say, "Oh, by the way, remember that time?" I thought she like immediately, like 5 minutes later, was like, "I felt like something pulled you down the stairs."
So
That scared the hell out of me.
so did you try resisting whatever this thing was that was pulling you down from the stairs? Because I've had my own experiences in my house where my house has shook, my entire house has shook when no one was home. You know, I've also tripped down my stairs because of definitely something paranormal. My house has definitely had some paranormal action in it. But when you were pulled down, or was it you that was pulled
My
down?
It was my brother, but I was like
Okay,
right there. Yeah.
so was he trying to resist whatever was pulling him down?
It was so fast. It wasn't like, hold on, it was like basically like when you slip, and then it felt like my mom described it as like when you slip and then somebody as you're slipping grabbed you and then yanked you down. Because when she went to grab him, she grabbed him, which my brother was a little boy, so it should have been easily enough for her to pull him up. But when she went to do that to pull him, she said it felt like something yanked him down. It was like that, but it was enough where she remembered. Like I said, she will still deny that there was anything going on there, but she will still say that that one incident made her still go,. And then the other thing was we had a roommate. His name was Fred. He was a great guy. He woke up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, and he went down to the bathroom, used it, went out, and then he went to his bed towards his bedroom, and then he said he got a weird feeling. He turned around and he saw somebody literally like at the end of the hall, like standing there for like a quick second, and then quickly moved out of the view.
Did he describe
Um,
it as like an apparition or like?
yeah, he said he couldn't get a good look whether it was male or female, but he said there was some kind of
So do you have
body.
have you ever heard of the shadow people? And in my recent videos, by the
Yes.
way, guys, if you check out my recent videos, I did capture what I believe might be a shadow person or Bigfoot. I still don't know, but
I'm gonna go
so
outside, but I'll still be on the
oh yeah,
thing.
it's all good. So
Losing light.
do you think this connection was maybe a shadow person and not a ghost, or do you think it was more of a ghost slash apparition?
Um, that's a tough to say. The only reason I say it would probably be more of a ghost is because the fact that that house was kind of older, and the fact that the creepy vibes originally once placed. Hold on, I'm gonna turn on my light real fast. I have
It's
to
all
turn it
good.
on with my phone.
Hey, I'm taking over the show. No, I'm joking.
Okay, there we
But
go.
but
There we go.
anyways, so
But yeah,
how
it
old
never
was
felt like it was anything that I don't know. I can't say. If I had to bet, it was a ghost, but it definitely had a very that basically felt like something bad happened there long ago. So,
so roughly how old was that house?
oh god,
Or do you know the year or
not the exact year, but at least I would say at least in the '60s, maybe the '50s. So it wasn't anything crazy old, but it was enough where there had been, because there's one of those houses where it wasn't like, oh, you bought it and you lived a 30-year mortgage. There's like a guy who rented it out through a few people. And like I said, the owner who owned it was adamant about us not going in that secondary part of the house, which was spooky. That house, like I said, I've never lived in a house that made me feel that way. Never. That's the only house in my entire life that I was just not comfortable being there.
Huh. But yeah,
Um,
so we've touched upon Bigfoot, we touched upon ghosts, and we touched a little bit up on UFOs. Is there anything else that you would like to mention to the show, or?
yeah, because I only touched on the UFOs real quickly. I think that now this is my tinfoil hat, but I think they're getting us prepared for the to reveal the existence of extraterrestrials. And the reason I believe that is because the fact that throughout, since this phenomenon was first reported after World War II, I mean, there's been reports throughout history, but before it became like a mainstream thing, um, our government was like, oh, it's hot air balloons or it's weather balloons or it's the light from Venus reflecting through the da 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 and all that crap. And then the New York Times came out and reported about. I don't know if you have you seen Commander Fраvor's story about the Tic Tac shape off the coast of San
Yeah,
Diego.
yeah. It was a naval pilot. Actually,
Yes.
yeah. I was reading an article earlier this morning, actually, and he's now retired, but everyone's been saying it's a balloon, but he said it's a UFO. Which is kind of crazy because he was literally the guy piloting excuse me, he was the guy piloting the aircraft. That's what I meant to say. Man, I'm getting my words mixed up.
No, it's okay. That always irritates me when people like to just, oh, it's a balloon. For one, balloons don't travel at, hypersonic
The
speeds.
speed
I
of
mean,
light.
yeah, well, maybe not that fast, but maybe like several times the speed of sound. But it's just like okay, for example, he was discussing. I don't know if you saw his. If you haven't watched his podcast, he did with Joe Rogan. He
Oh,
was
the
on the Joe
Joe Rogan.
Rogan
I love
podcast.
Joe Rogan.
Oh, me too. He's
Guys,
incredible.
big shout out to Joe Rogan. Even though Joe Rogan will never come across this, big shout out to Joe Rogan.
Oh, Joe Rogan's the goat.
Yep.
But but anyway, he was on there and he was talking because they had the FLIR camera, which stands for forward-looking infrared something. And these pods that they use on these F-18s, I think it was, at the time were state of the art. And the way they do it is they can track for miles. So even if something zips off to the left at like a couple hundred miles an hour, it'll still be able to track it for a few seconds. Well, this thing they tracked zipped off faster than anything they had. It zipped off the FLIR's image. And no aircraft, the U.S., China, or Russia that we know of, unless they're lying, have that technology. And what's the creepy part is this thing didn't have a form of propulsion that we know of. It didn't leave off a heat signature. It didn't have like some flames coming out the back. It was literally a smooth surface that was like a tic tac shape, just elongated. Smooth surface going faster than anything that we know of. Like, what do you say to that? And then the fact that the government just came out back in June because they had back in 2019 in December for the COVID-19 spending bill, there was a stipulation that the Pentagon had to reveal an unclassified report about what they know about UFOs, supposedly. And they even in their own report say that out of the 141 or something cases that we discussed, only one we could figure out what it was. The other, we have no idea.
Yeah.
And they say that it's because if it's us, it seems like a really weird way to report it being U.S. technology. Like if it was just U.S. technology, you would think that the Pentagon would go to Congress and like, hey, stop talking about it. It's just us. Just drop it. And then if it was Russia and China, why wouldn't they just come out and say, hey, this is Russia and China, and we need to start getting our, because that would actually be a good thing for them, because if they came out and said it was Russia and China, they could just go to Congress and say, hey, that's why we need more funding for the military so we can keep up with Russia and China. So
But
that
even
doesn't make
then,
much sense.
I don't think there's anybody on this earth that has the technology to go that fast, other than
I don't either.
Elon Musk might be the only person. Because every time I see his rocket launches, my theory, as well as many others, believe that he might be helping ET or Bigfoot fly these crafts. But Because when they fly the rockets, it looks so much like a UFO. Like anyone can look up videos of these rockets, and it's absolutely crazy seeing the technology that they have, that Elon Musk has, uh, compared to NASA. Because like NASA is still using their old rockets from when they were launching people, and it's like we now have this guy who's a civilian and he's not even part government, which is kind of strange. And
Uh,
so maybe he's behind some sort of cover up. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, there are. I often wonder. I mean, he was. That's funny you mentioned that because I was literally watching a podcast with him, Elon, and Joe Rogan. Shout out again. Um, he was on there, and Joe Rogan flat out asked him, "Seen anything to back up the existence of ETs?" He said no. Which I mean, even if he did, he wouldn't tell us. But I will say this: I don't know. About if he's in connection or anything like that, but I will say that our government knows more than it's letting on about these UFOs because they just wrote it off as we just don't know. I don't buy that for a second. I mean, we have the most advanced intelligence in the entire planet, and the fact that these craft are flying over our airspace and we don't know where they're coming from, that I don't buy that for a second. I think that was their way to warm us up for them to finally come out and say, yeah, there is an extraterrestrial race out there.
One one of my
I mean, even the astronauts, even. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
so kind of going back to Elon Musk and our conversation on that, one of my viewers says there is never a rocket visible in Elon Musk's rocket launches, and he says it's Stargate opening up. Do you have any opinion on this theory, or?
Like, what do you mean? So is he saying like the rockets aren't going to space; they're going through a Stargate? Is that what he's asking?
Yeah, and do you think that there's some
Um.
sort of like portal, or do you think that maybe this is just a huge cover up?
Um. Okay, I have a different conspiracy. I don't think it's that, but I do think it's one thing though. This is a conspiracy, and there's actually precedent for this. So there was a guy in the UK in the early 2000s that hacked into the NASA mainframe. He was a I can't remember the gentleman's name. Hacked in the NASA supercomputer and he found evidence of a project called Solar Warden. Just Google it, and it described a non-terrestrial officer, and that doesn't mean it's not saying aliens. It's saying like we have military equipment in outer space, like soldiers in outer space. And isn't it funny that we now have a space force? Just as
Well, well,
space travel. Go ahead. Sorry.
let me clear up Space Force, because
Sure.
we all know that we've had a Space Force before Space Force was invented.
Absolutely, but that was their
Ronald
way of
Reagan.
revealing it. Right, exactly, with Star Wars, absolutely. But it was their way of saying, "Oh, we're going to do a space program to defend the space," because they've already done this. They've had that for decades. I don't believe the government would spend billions of dollars just to go to the moon and to outer space, and then to go, "Okay, we did it, we're done." No, they probably saw the moon and like, "Oh, we can use this. Oh, the Mars, we can use this." You know, especially to one up the Soviets during the Cold War. I mean, they wouldn't spend all that money just for publicity. There would be more for it than just the optics of, hey, we beat the commies to the moon. There was way more to it than that, in my opinion, at least.
Have you ever heard of Solar Warden by chance?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Solar Warden was the name of the program that got into the UK citizen. In fact, he's wanted by the US government. They tried to extradite him to the US for hacking into the to that property, but the British government wouldn't let us do it. So he's still over in Britain. But yeah, he's come up in interviews and said he found evidence of non-terrestrial officers and ships that are way the hell out that are operated by human beings. And my question is, okay, where did they get the technology to do that? So leave that as you will. That is the conspiracy I believe in more. Is I think we already have things on Mars and the moon, and I think SpaceX and the Space Force is just their way to slowly get us prepared for that information. Because I mean, look how much people freaked out from COVID. Like we had COVID and people were buying up all the damn toilet paper.
Yep.
So imagine if the president got on stage and was like, "Yeah, we found contact of these extraterrestrials that are so technologically beyond us, and if they decided to kill us all, there's nothing we can do about it." Could you imagine how many people would panic?
Yeah, I think that would be all of California.
Yeah,
I,
right.
I mean that honestly too, you know? Like,
Yeah,
hey, I already know how California acts because I live here.
yeah.
So,
I'm literally right up the road from Portland, Oregon, so I get it.
yeah, I've been to Oregon, very beautiful state, beautiful area, and
Absolutely, take out Portland; it's an amazing state.
yeah.
Yeah,
You know, there are
the
within
God,
every state there's a bad city in every state, but
true.
also within every state there's a good city, which is the hotspot for paranormal phenomenon. Like,
Yeah,
you know, exactly like with what we're talking about, and yeah,
yeah. Like
I
I
don't know
said,
where I was going with that.
oh no, you're okay. Like I said, I got on the Bigfoot because I believe in most of the paranormal stuff. Bigfoot is just the easiest for me, just because of where I live with the
For
woods
anyone.
and the history. But yeah, I've done a little bit of ghost hunting here and there. Not in a long time. I did a lot as a teenager, but I try not to dabble with that stuff just because I know a few friends of mine who would mess with Ouija boards and it just didn't end well for them. And I just told myself I would never mess with that crap. But I mean, hey, you do you. Just knowing my luck, I'll piss some spirit off and it'll mess with me for the rest of my life. So I don't go there.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bigfoot is one of the main reasons, just because it's a pretty easy one, I think, for people to believe, just because it's you know it's not outlandish to believe there could just be an undiscovered primate, but there could be more to Bigfoot. I've heard some people believe he's more than just a primate. I don't know. I will say that some of the reports and some of the stuff I've read has been very disturbing and has been very like, huh.
Do you think that those could be hoax reports for people to try and get attention? Because from what I've experienced and many others, and they seem to be kind of like, hey, you keep your distance, I'll keep mine. We'll just keep our peace. Uh, what do you think that these hostile reports could be hoaxes, or do you think that they might be the truth?
I think some of them. I Here's the thing. I think with just like with Bigfoot and everything, I think that people, they want their 5 minutes of fame. I'm not saying everybody. I think there's a lot of them that are totally made up. But like I said, because I always go back when to like what the Native Americans talked about. They talked about how Bigfoot would throw shit at them, and they didn't want to be let. They wanted to be left alone. It's not like I said, like primates do that. If they want to be left alone, they'll throw their shit at you, of course. But it's not an unprimate like behavior to throw things that other things that they don't want near them. So that's why I'm not quick to go, oh, that's total BS. I'm sure some of the stories are BS, but it's not so outlandish where, like some people believe he can go through a portal and all that. Not saying it's impossible, but that's less likely than he just doesn't want to be bothered. But who knows? Strange world.
So, so to the non-believers of Bigfoot, uh, is there any messages that you would have to kind of tell them, or like, what would you say to someone that doesn't believe in the paranormal in general?
Well, I can start at least with Bigfoot. As far as the Bigfoot, if you don't believe, here's a advice: go into the middle of the woods and just listen. Just sit. And I'm not talking like, oh, the highway's like a mile away. I'm talking go into the woods big time and stay the night if you can, and just listen. You'll hear some weird things. Um, yeah, like I said. And then when you're out in the woods, just look at and look how vast the wilderness is. Um, and it's not hard to believe that there could be something hiding in that. And as far as ghosts, um, pretty much every culture throughout human history has stories of spirits and talking to the dead and all that. So that has to be from something. Could be coping from their loss, but it's awfully detailed. And as far as UFOs, if you look up in the night sky, every star you see is within a couple hundred light years of us, and our galaxy is 100,000 light years. and the universe is billions of light years. So it's unlikely we're the only thing out there.
I agree with you 100%, and I'm pretty sure many of our viewers and followers to the show do agree as well. For those that do like the paranormal, um,
I love it because it brings it makes life fast. Let's pretend you and me are completely wrong, that this is all made up and there's nothing to this and this world is just what we know it. I still like the paranormal because it makes the a rather, I don't want to say the world is ordinary, but it makes the world that seems pretty rigid and ordinary seem a little bit more special than it actually is. And not only that, humans like the unknown. So that's why I think people should be open minded. Just embrace the unknown.
I agree. I agree, and I think we pretty much covered it all, at least most of it. And I do want to say thank you so much for your time and dedication and being interested in this topic because, there's some people that aren't, and then there's some people that are. But I do want to say thank you so much for being on my show, and I do appreciate your time, and as well as to my viewers. If you guys have been sticking around for the beginning, I do greatly appreciate it. Guys, make sure you to subscribe to me, and also Sean. Do you have any socials that you want to put out?
Yeah, it's not paranormal related. I'm also a big gamer. I love video games. So you can follow me on Twitch and all major social medias. It's Darth. I keep in mind I made this account when I was 17 and the name stuck. But it's Darth, like in Star Wars, Darth, and then Arius, Areus gaming on Twitch, and then follow me on all the major social medias.
And then for like other social medias, that would that just be your
Like
name?
Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, and TikTok.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I just want to say thank you once again. I know I say a lot of thank yous, but you gotta remember your please and thank yous. And
Yep.
yeah, we're gonna end this show here. And Sean, if you have any more experiences in the near future, you're more than welcome to come back. And same goes to any of my viewers, etc. And if you guys do have any experiences, go to paranormalawakening.org/contact.
I'll keep that in mind.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You as well, brother.
Bye.